أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. Allah Almighty says in the Holy Quran, chapter 59, verse 19, that, O ye who believe, fear Allah and let every soul look to what it sends forth for the morrow, and fear Allah. Verily, Allah is well aware of what you do. How to attain peace and harmony in family life through the Holy Quran. There are many different relationships that we have in our families. The relationship between parents and children, brothers and sisters. But there is one relationship that we have a choice concerning. We are born into our families, or our children are born to us and they develop personalities before us. However, when it comes to the relationship of a spouse, there, the control or the power to a great extent is in our hands, that we choose who will be the closest member of our family for the remainder of our lives. And so this is one aspect of peace and harmony in our family lives, which is relevant and which has a great effect on us. It is a decision that we make which is one of the most important in our lives. Its relevance applies to each one of us because all of us eventually have to choose a spouse. And if we already have, then we have to look forward to choosing the spouses of our children. Then also there come times when we have to help our loved ones, our siblings and other close friends or maybe cousins in finding a spouse. So it is important when making this decision ourselves or when giving someone else advice that we have a clear idea of what will bring that person peace and harmony in their family life for the remainder of their lives. The Holy Prophet ﷺ gave a general guideline, which is a commentary on this verse. This verse of وَلْتَنْظُرْ نَفْسٌ مَا قَدَّمَتْ لِغَدٍ, that each one of us should look to our future, not to our immediate future, but to our distant future to see what is in our interests. The Prophet ﷺ said that in marrying a woman, a man's choice of a spouse is determined by the consideration of her wealth, her family, her physical beauty, and her religious piety. But you should make your life happy, prosperous, and successful by choosing a spouse on account of her religious piety. Otherwise, your hands will ever remain in dust. This hadith, in a way, is a commentary on this verse, because the Prophet ﷺ has taught us what is the wrong way by which people look towards their future. He gave us different categories of things that we look towards with too much emphasis. And then he taught us what that criteria is that is really looking towards our long-term future, which will give us peace in our long-term lives. The Prophet ﷺ gave examples of things people take into account that are not to be given first priority. The first thing he listed was wealth. When we are looking for a spouse, we look to see how wealthy that person we are looking for is, or how wealthy that person is who we are looking for our children. However, the Prophet ﷺ said that this is not something that we should place emphasis on. A materialistic spouse, or if we ourselves are materialistic, will eventually lead us to being poor within ourselves, will lead us to poverty of the hearts. Now, the reason why we try to find a rich or wealthy person who we want to spend our lives with is because we're interested in improving our economic condition. This is something that each and every person wants to do. However, our problem is that we overestimate how important it is. The Prophet ﷺ never said that we should never take these things into account. There should always be kufr, there should always be some equality, some consideration to all these characteristics. However, when it goes too far, then it creates harm. Now, when it comes to wealth, one of the reasons we look for people who are wealthy is because we want to improve our economic position. However, our ability to project or predict our future and our happiness when we win the lottery or when we get some great amount of wealth is usually overestimated. The same way as our ability to estimate how we'll feel when we face a tragedy. A study was done on this in which people were asked to gauge how they would respond to a tragedy that happened in their life, something horrific, if they lost a limb, if they lost a loved one. Usually people far overestimated the level of sorrow and pain that they would go through if they went through this loss. Similarly, people also overestimate the level of happiness that they'll feel if they gain a great amount of wealth, if they win the lottery. But people who actually win the lottery, people who actually get rich, then they end up not being able to handle it. They overestimate their happiness and end up finding themselves just as miserable as they were before. So our ability to estimate our future happiness in our distant future is way off when it comes to projecting our future. So the first guideline is that when we are looking for a spouse, we should keep this verse in mind in this category of wealth, that وَلْتَنْظُرْ نَفْسٌ مَا قَدَّمَتْ لِغَدٍ, that when we think about our future, we overestimate the sorrow we will feel when we face a tragedy. We actually deal with it better than we thought. And also, if we think that marrying someone who is rich, moving up in the economics ladder will give us long-term happiness, and we've overestimated it. This is looking into our immediate future, but not into our long-term future. It is looking into the immediate future of our children, but not into their long-term future. Then the second category the Prophet ﷺ mentioned is that people look to the family of that person who they want to add to their family, who they want to spend their life with. They look to see how great the honor of that family is, their dignity. They want their own respect and influence to be increased by being able to add that influence and respect to their own family. However, respect and influence, they come from our actions, and they can be lost from our actions as well. If a person is not righteous, then they will cause us to lose whatever honor we have. You know, Hazrat Muslim Maud radiallahu anhu at one time when he addressed a graduation ceremony, he explained to the students that many people, they celebrate when they receive a degree, and they think that they have accomplished something and now it is their time to rest. However, he said that a degree or a diploma does not give honor to a student. Students give honor to their diplomas. If any school is famous or any diploma is given respect, it is because people who had it previously did great things, and then they brought honor to that diploma. If one school is good or if another school is good, if Harvard is good, it is only because it can quote people who have accomplished things. So if a student earns a diploma, that places a responsibility on him. It is not a right or an entitlement to anything. It is not a definition that we can now rest, but it means that we must now work. So this is the same thing that comes with honor that comes with a family. If a family is honorable, if it has respect, it has it because of what their predecessors did, because of what their elders did. And so being from an honored family does not mean that we will necessarily earn respect and that we will continue it. It does not mean that now we have that honor and that we can sit on it now, but it must be sustained. So if a person marries an unrighteous spouse, they lose these things. When it comes to wealth, they lose their wealth. When it comes to honor, they lose their honor. You know, for example, when it comes to wealth, if a person is living middle class, when a person goes into a higher class, then they very quickly adjust to that lifestyle, and they're no longer content with that living. Then they're in the same position that they were before trying to meet their bills. You know, when a person is in the lower class, they're happy with one car and an apartment. But when they get a promotion, then they want a better car, an SUV with a house of their own. They're back in that same situation of misery. You know, in the same way, if we marry a spouse simply because of their wealth, in a matter of time, we'll become accustomed to that new economic status, and we'll go right back to the same misery we were in before. And if we marry someone who is materialistic, that person will always make us feel poor, because they will always want more than what we have. So a person who marries for the sake of wealth ends up poor, suffering from a poverty of the heart. And in the same way, someone who marries simply for the sake of family, they also lose their honor. Because a person who is not pious, they will not be able to raise pious children. And those children will end up being a source of disgrace for that family. So a family can lose their honor in one generation. Children can grow up doing things that their parents are ashamed of and they try to hide. So one who tries to seek peace and harmony simply by marrying into an honorable family or wealth, they also do not find that harmony. They also do not find that peace. Then there is the third aspect that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned is physical beauty. That people, they marry and they seek a spouse and a companion because of the physical beauty of that companion. However, something that is universal about loving something simply for its physical or material beauty is that that love and that fascination, it decreases with familiarity. This applies with any object. If we see a new car that we buy, that car is fascinating and it is exceptionally beautiful in our eyes at first. Even a cell phone or anything. But after we've owned it for some time, even if we keep it in mint condition, even if we wash it, even if it looks exactly the same 3 years later, it won't be as fascinating. It won't have that same new car feel because we got that familiarity with that object. So when we love something or anyone for their physical beauty, even if that person remains exactly in their present state, if they do not age, if they do not lose or gain weight or anything, we will not find them as beautiful as we did in the beginning simply because the mystery is gone, because that familiarity has increased, and that beauty will start to fade. Then also the obvious is that we can see in our own experience and around us is that as people age, their physical beauty starts to fade through different aspects of aging. And so a person who marries only for the sake of physical beauty also goes against the guidance that Allah Ta'ala has given in this verse, that وَلْتَنْظُرْ نَفْسٌ مَا قَدَّمَتْ لِغَدٍ, that each person should look to his future. Physical beauty applies to our immediate future, but not to our distant future. There's one point that Hazrat Muslim Maud Raziyallahu anhu has mentioned in Ta'alluq Billah, which is that there is a difference between the way we appreciate the love, appreciate the beauty of people, and appreciate the beauty of Allah Ta'ala. When it comes to appreciating the beauty of Allah Ta'ala, we first see His ihsan, the good that He does for us, the acceptance